So, I'm just going to talk very briefly about why our approach works, or some of the key principles behind it. 3 key elements. So the first one is visualization. Visualization is, we're all probably all familiar with the term "a picture paints 1,000 words." And it's true, isn't it? If you think about it, whenever we want to try and communicate something, it's so much easier if we can kind of show people a diagram, a drawing, an image. We use it in our PowerPoint presentations with data. We simplify big charts of data into graphs. But on a more complex level, we can actually transmit very complex and interrelated messages as well using visualization. Human beings are hardwired to see things visually. The first, if you think about it, when we're very small, the first books that we're given as children and how we start to learn about the world is through pictures. All of our first books that we get have pictures in it, because even at that early age, our brains can pick up signals from pictures that they can't pick up from words. So our brains are very, very attuned to visual information. 50% of our brain is devoted to visual processing. 70% of your sensory apparatus is in your eyes, and you can cut to a scene of an image and make sense of it much quicker than you can wading through a load of text. And I guess we all know that's why Instagram and Facebook and all these little memes that we get in front of us every day are so popular. It's a very, very powerful and efficient way of communicating. Now, when it comes to communicating, there's a very broad range of things that we can do, all the way from our PowerPoint slides at one end, where we just may show data and simple information, all the way through to the stuff that we do at this end, which is what we call compound imagery. I'm not going to go into the technical elements of that. That's not why we're here today. But this is a one-pager that we've developed just to try and help managers understand that there's a range of different visual techniques that they can use, because we like to help organizations not only to work with us to develop the big picture, but also to try and get more visual in all of their communications as well, because we want that legacy to carry on after we've finished working with you. So visualization, that's the first part of what we do and why we think it works and why we believe it works. The second part is this really weird thing called dialogue, talking to each other. How strange is that? And that's a really key part of what we do. One of the analogies that we often use when people are using our products, when they're using our big pictures, it's a little bit like, and I know it's quite contemporary, when you play a game at Christmas, when everybody clears the table, puts their phones away, ditches the iPad, puts the PlayStation to one side, and we get a board game out. And we're just there for each other, we're present. And that's a very key part of what we do, the whole dialogue piece, the talking to each other across the table and making sense of the organization. For a lot of organizations, the communication hierarchy is the other way around. If you can imagine, download is down here. We kind of spend most of our time downloading, transmitting information in a one-way format. And only a small part of it is dedicated to actually us together talking and generating collaboration. What this diagram is trying to illustrate is that what we believe is organizations should try and reverse that as much as possible and make their communications about talking to each other rather than just telling each other what's happening. And technology kind of compounds that problem, because we're very tempted to send out email blasts, put things on the intranet, and all of these things have their value. But at the heart of it, people only change their mindset and their attitudes and their behaviors when they engage with people in conversation. I was going to run another poll, but I'm going to skip past that one, just in the interest of time. The final element of what we do is interactivity. So we've got the picture, we've got the dialogue. What we want people to do is not just be told why we're changing as a business. We want them to try and work out elements of that for themselves. We're probably all familiar with the famous proverb. I'm not going to read it out to you, but this for me is really, really true. If you think about the times when you actually learn most, when you've had the most profound learning in your career, it's probably when you've been doing something and working it out for yourself, rather than someone's just sat in a classroom and told you something or given you a sort of a model or a process to use. So we really try and encourage people to work as much out for themselves, and I'll explain a little bit how that works in a minute. So again, just building on that from a more technical perspective, reading information, lowest level of engagement, all the way up to what we do, which is activity-based learning. So how that manifests itself in the work that we do, so we have elements, the communication process that your people are going to be going through, which are gamified. It might be a quiz, it might be a matching exercise where we've got different strategic priorities and we've got to try and work out what priority order we would put them in. We're kind of thinking as we would if we were a business owner rather than just being told what to think and this is the right answer. We've got to try and work it out for ourselves. So our process involves a lot of actually interactive learning, which is important. So those three things combined together, there are many more, but they're the kind of heart of what we do. Visualization, visualizing your story, dialogue, some really active communications between people, between the facilitator who's going to be running this, and I'll explain how that will work in a moment, and interactivity, working things out for myself, mapping out, seeing how things add up and fit together myself. How that looks in reality, I've showed you some pictures of on the other screen, but slightly bigger here. We've got groups of people, sat in groups of around 8 to 10 people. That's the optimum number. Interacting with this picture of your organization being the centerpiece, facilitated by someone who knows what they're doing, but someone from your organization, not from ours. So we will train your own internal facilitators to be able to run this process, which is not a formal training role. It's very much just being able to choreograph the timings and making sure that everything fits together. The materials are very self-directed. And at the end of it, feeling as though we've had 2 or 3 hours where we've really, really got our head around the business. At last, we kind of understand what it is this business is trying to do and why. And with a great opportunity for you to follow up in your teams, in your organization, in your functions, with some connecting local activities to the overall strategic picture that we've painted.